Super Friends is an animated television series produced by Hanna-Barbera that aired on the ABC network from 1978 to 1979. The show ran for an entire hour on the ABC network, with a Challenge of the Super Friends segment for the first half, followed by another half hour that usually featured the original 5 Super Friends as well as the Wonder Twins. This time around, the Wonder Twins are much more proactive and seem to feel they have a lot more to prove.
Oh, come on, Super Sis. We can handle this one ourselves.
I don't know, Zan.
Sure we can. We've got to start sometime if we're ever going to become full-fledged Super Friends.
On the episode The Demons of Exor, we finally get our first animated look at the home planet of the Wonder Twins. A wannabe Darth Vader type called Lord Darkon invades the twins' home planet, and with all the other Super Friends on duty, the junior Super Friends take it upon themselves to stop his occupation of their home world. I think Zan turning into an ice giant is a pretty cool use of his powers, and was surprised that he didn't use this trick more often. Despite their best efforts, the Wonder Twins cannot defeat Lord Darkon all on their own.
Welcome. I am Lord Darkon, and you must be the famed secret weapon of the Exorian High Command. If you're the best defense the Exorians have, I'll be in control of Exor in a matter of hours.
The Wonder Twins make their post-crisis debut with an Extreme Justice issue number 9 by the year 1995. The Wonder Twins rule Exor until a group of overlords enslave their people and bring them to the planet Earth. After their tenure with the Extreme Justice team, they would also appear as part of the Young Justice family from issue 49 to issue 51 by the year 2002. As opposed to the pre-crisis twins, these post-crisis versions never really bother to learn the English language and usually have Booster Gold's robot Skeets or Slowbo, the young clone of Lobo, serving as translators for the galactic standard language known as Interlac.
I don't know about you, Zan, but I'm lost.
Eventually, the Super Friends follow the twins to Exor. Batman and Robin travel to the planet by the way of their Bat Rocket. The Bat Rocket would later resurface inside the pages of Batman issue 658 by the year 2006. Once on the planet's surface, Darkon's men waste no time in attacking the Super Friends. However, Darkon's troops are taken out faster than Ewoks owning stormtroopers on the moon of Endor.
It's not over yet.
It is for me, sister.
Darkon's next step is to activate his Thought Materializer, which brings to life a mythical creature called a Logar from Wonder Woman's home of Paradise Island. The way the Logar scoops up the entire team in its clawed tentacles certainly brings to mind Starro's first encounter with the Justice League of America in Brave and the Bold, issue number 28.
It's working, Batman. That was a close one.
Plenty of elements from Superman's Kryptonian heritage and mythos find their way into this season of the Super Friends. In the episode Terra from the Phantom Zone, the Hanna-Barbera created Phantom Zone criminals Logar, Hall, and Romlock are introduced. The criminals escape their imprisonment within the Phantom Zone and expose Superman to Red Kryptonite. Originally, Red Kryptonite is introduced inside the pages of Adventure Comics issue 252 by the year 1958. On its initial introduction, Red Kryptonite is described as simply being 10 times stronger than the green variety, similar to the effects of Black Kryptonite from the television series Smallville or the pseudo-green Kryptonite from the film Superman 3. As of Adventure Comics issue 255, Red Kryptonite is a form of kryptonite that landed on the planet Mars, which splits the Boy of Steel into separate versions of Superboy and Clark Kent. The Clark Kent persona becomes increasingly jealous and aggressive, which leads to a confrontation that ends in his demise.
Your time has come, Man of Steel!
Your idle threats don't scare me, Romlock.
No, but this might. Red Kryptonite.
No! Take it away!
It's too late, Superman. You've taken a full dose of the red kryptonite.
With the unpredictable effects it has on you, there's no telling what will happen.
The exposure to the red variety causes the Man of Steel to age rapidly, turning him into a weak old man. Conversely, it's interesting to note that red kryptonite's sole effect on the series Smallville seems to be making Clark an uninhibited bad boy with little regard for the consequences of his actions. However, Adventure Comics issue number 268 from the year 1960 confirms the standard definition from that point on in the comics that the effects of red kryptonite usually result in strange and unpredictable outcomes, such as the aforementioned rapid aging. Red kryptonite is said to have been created when standard green kryptonite passed through a red cosmic cloud. According to the Justice League computer, the only thing that might reverse Superman's rapid aging is blue kryptonite.
According to the data in the Justice League standard memory banks, the only possible antidote is blue kryptonite.
But blue kryptonite only affects Bizarro.
Correct, Superman. And because Bizarro reacts the opposite to you in many ways, it is possible that blue kryptonite, which is harmful to Bizarro, may actually be beneficial to you.
Blue kryptonite is first introduced inside the pages of Superman issue 140 from the year 1960. Since Bizarros are unaffected by the green variety of kryptonite, Superman uses Luthor's duplicate ray, which creates the imperfect blue variety to fend off an invading army of Bizarros on their way to Earth. In order to acquire blue kryptonite on the television series, Superman realizes he'll need to return to the site of the planet Krypton's explosion and traverse through a massive amount of deadly green kryptonite. Superman's solution to this dilemma is a simple one.
I'm too weak to fly at light speed. I'll have to take the Supermobile.
Superman first creates the Supermobile to combat the android with the powers of the entire Justice League of America, Amazo, inside the pages of Action Comics issue 481 from the year 1978. In the comic book story, the Supermobile enables the Man of Steel to continue his fight against Amazo after getting hit with a wave of red solar energy that leaves him temporarily powerless. Mostly, the Supermobile protects Superman from red solar energy and kryptonite radiation, while letting the Man of Steel continue to utilize the full spectrum of his abilities. The Supermobile returns in the episode titled Journey Through Inner Space, where Superman and Wonder Woman shrink down to microscopic size to traverse Aquaman's body in order to cure him from his transformation into a prehistoric sea beast. In the world's greatest Super Friend episode, Lex Luthor Strikes Back, Superman is rendered powerless when Luthor's sun creature allies turn Earth's yellow sun red. Superman then drives the sun creatures off the planet using his Supermobile. Then, in one of the lost episodes or shorts titled The Krypton Syndrome, the Supermobile would make its final animated appearance.
The Supermobile should be able to handle it.
I have very fond memories of the die-cast Supermobile from Corgi Toys, which was about the size of a Hot Wheels car and featured spring arm action. Plus, the Supermobile would receive a redesign when it became part of the Superpowers Collection toy line. The vehicle is big enough to seat a single action figure, usually the Man of Steel himself, but instead of having the two mechanical arms from the original design, this version of the Supermobile features a Krypton action ram that is mounted at the front of the ship. Even though I can appreciate the Supermobile, future appearances in comic books are limited to cameos of both these designs inside the pages of the all-new Atom in an assault on the future Ivy Town, and most recently inside the pages of the Superman Family Adventures when Superman fends off the kryptonite-powered villain Metallo.
Thundering Krypton!
Beyond the Phantom Zone criminals, Superman would also have to deal with other Kryptonian menaces on the Super Friends. Despite the given moniker of the last son of Krypton, the Challenge of the Super Friends episode titled Doomsday features the Hanna-Barbera created villain called Nartan. Nartan is said to be the Black Knight of Krypton, who must have been exiled to the antimatter universe of Quard long before Jor-El ever invented the Phantom Zone. The villain finds his true calling as some kind of sheriff in that particular universe where good is outlawed and evil reigns supreme.
Nartan!
Yes, the Black Knight of Krypton, banished to the Quad Universe for crimes beyond the imagination. But I work for the law in this world, and you, Superman, are on the most wanted list.
In addition to Nartan, a long-thought-to-be extinct prehistoric Kryptonian beast plagues Superman and the Super Friends in the episode titled Rokan, Enemy from Space. When Rokan first arrives on the planet Earth, she flaps her huge wings, causing destructive waves of wind power throughout the land.
Great Scott! What on earth is it? I can answer that, Batman. It's a prehistoric beast called Rokan, from my home planet Krypton. It was thought to be extinct for 1 million years, but my guess is that the explosion of Krypton just after I left freed the beast from the polar ice cap.
Both the name and her first actions seem to indicate that the creature was inspired by the Toho movie monster Rodan. Besides the kaiju influence, Rokan is also reminiscent of the mutated Snagriff of Krypton, who makes its first appearance in Superman issue number 78 from the year 1952. The Snagriff, however, is not a prehistoric beast, but one that has been experimented upon, causing its chest and wings to turn metallic. The Kryptonian Flame Dragon, first introduced in Superman issue 142 by the year 1961, is also quite similar to Rokan. On the television series, Rokan lays dozens of eggs once on Earth, and although Superman defeats the Kryptonian Flame Dragon on her initial comic book appearance, her egg, once hatched, would return to menace the denizens of Metropolis inside the pages of Superman issue 151 by the year 1962.
Great Atlantis! Dozens of Rokan eggs.
If there are other eggs, they must all be destroyed.
Besides Kryptonian adversaries, the Super Friends would also face that mischievous imp, Mr. Mxyzptlk, in the episode titled The Rise and Fall of the Super Friends. Mxyzptlk reminds me of Mojo here, using his fifth-dimensional magic to get the Super Friends to act out his crazy movie script. Also, seeing Mxyzptlk possess the Wonder Twin space monkey Gleek is pretty creepy as well.
Great Neptune!
Besides, you'll be late for your big screen test.
Jumping meteors! Gleek's talking, and with Mxyzptlk's voice!
That's right, Wonder Twit! And unless Aquaman and Wonder Woman arrive promptly at the city junkyard, I'll be forced to revoke their Scream Actors Guild card. I'll take it away.
Plus, in Transylvania, the Lord of all Vampires, Count Dracula, is awakened after his long slumber. For reasons that I assume belong to broadcast standards and practices, apparently, to become a vampire on the Super Friends, you just need to get zapped by vampire eye beams. Luckily, though, I guess Batman and Robin's capes have built-in vampire eye beam deflectors. I guess Dracula has asthma or something too, because he is constantly wheezing every time he speaks.
Okay, Dracula, you're next.
On the contrary, it is you who are next to perish.
For some reason, Superman is also transformed by the vampire eye beams of Count Dracula, even though the Lord of Vampires claims he is about to puncture his neck with his fangs.
Now, Superman, you will feel the bite of Dracula.
Superman is then transformed into a super vampire of sorts, with the frightening ability to transform hordes of citizens in Vienna at super speed. Most folks would probably argue that Superman would be vulnerable to the magical nature of Dracula. Despite what the cover depicts inside the pages of Superman issue 344 from the year 1980, the Man of Steel never actually falls prey to Dracula's hypnosis, and in turn, Dracula never actually has the chance to bite the Man of Steel, even with the assistance of Frankenstein's monster. The post-crisis version of Superman faces off against the Nosferatu-looking Dracula after Lucy Lane succumbs to his vampire bite inside the pages of the two-part story from Superman the Man of Steel issue number 14 and Superman Volume 2 issue number 70 from the year 1992. Again, despite the cover, Superman's neck is never actually punctured, but Superman does in fact indicate that the magical nature of Lucy's transformation into a vampire vampire would probably allow her to puncture Superman's normally invulnerable skin. By the year 2002, inside the pages of Superman Volume 2, issue 180, the last son of Krypton faces off against the Count Romanoff, who also claims to be Dracula himself. In this issue, Superman's neck is actually punctured under hypnosis by the fangs of Dracula. However, Lois Lane describes the outcome as someone taking a big bite out of the sun. So I guess if a vampire does somehow manage to bite Superman, it will only lead to their self-destruction.
You're too strong, Superman. Have mercy on me.
Never.
While viewers of the Super Friends are no stranger to seeing Superman in his secret identity of Clark Kent, it was quite rare to see the Amazonian princess Wonder Woman in her secret identity. In the episode titled The Antimatter Monster, Major Diana Prince doesn't actually make an official appearance, but Wonder Woman does go undercover as a government research scientist named Andrea Randolph.
I'm Clark Kent, and this is Andrea Randolph of the Federal Energy Center. She's here to neutralize the energy creature.
Wonder Woman's ties to the Greek gods of myth are touched upon in the episode titled Battle of the Gods. For whatever theological reasons, on the Super Friends, the Greek gods' resting place is an alien planet called Kaltos. Wonder Woman ends up receiving a telepathic SOS from the patron goddess of the Amazons, Aphrodite. The Greek goddess of love and beauty has been part of Wonder Woman's story from the very beginning all the way back to All-Star Comics issue number 8. Although Aphrodite's role would diminish in later incarnations of Wonder Woman, the gods of Greek myth continue to play a vital role in all future storylines. To honor her patron goddess, Wonder Woman and the other Super Friends head to Mount Olympus on the planet Kaltos to avert an earthquake from destroying Aphrodite's temple. Though Aphrodite is most pleased, the jealous wife of Zeus, Queen Hera, decides to prove they're not worthy of her praise and sends a centaur with kryptonite horseshoes just to destroy the Super Friends. Zeus doesn't like all this catfighting up on Mount Olympus, so he decides he'll just challenge the Super Friends to 4 great tasks of peril, so he can shut up his women before they start scratching one another and pulling each other's hair out.
Your super friends don't look very super anymore.
Only you, Hera, could bring anger to the goddess of love.
I will not have such a quarrel on Mount Olympus.
Zeus!
Bitches leave.
While Batman and Robin solve the riddle of the Sphinx, Aquaman is off securing the Golden Fleece from an invisible brute, and Superman fights his own shadow in order to track down the Minotaur.
That should teach you not to mess with Super Matador.
Wonder Woman herself faces off against the hideous, snake-haired Gorgon Medusa. One glance at Medusa will make any opponent she faces a stone statue.
Wonder Woman!
I'm afraid you are mistaken. I am Medusa!
Wonder Woman Volume 2, issue number 92 from the year 1994 marks the first appearance of the mythological creature Medusa, spelt with an O, during the contest that led to Artemis becoming the new Wonder Woman. This, however, is not to be confused with the member of the Creature Commandos, one Myrna Rhodes, who goes by the codename Medusa. By the year 2005, Medusa and Wonder Woman have a violent rematch inside the pages of Wonder Woman Volume 2, issue 210. Though Wonder Woman shields her eyes with a helmet and blindfold for the majority of the fight, she is forced to blind herself in order to gain the killing stroke. Luckily, on the Super Friends, Wonder Woman's solution to defeat Medusa is not nearly so self-destructive.
Look at me! Look at me and turn to stone! This should take care of her! No!
One item I did not get to discuss in the Challenge of the Super Friends video is the episode titled Super Friends Rest in Peace, which features the demise of all the Super Friends at the hands of a deadly Noxium crystal created by the so-called 13th member of the Legion of Doom, one Dr. Notaz. The episode opens with a gravestone of Batman prominently on display. This of course brings to mind the death of the Earth 2 Batman inside the pages of Adventure Comics issue 462 from the year 1979. For some reason, this issue was long sought after by me during my childhood. I guess I was just fascinated with seeing some form of finality to the story of Bruce Wayne and Batman.
I can't believe he's really gone.
I understand, Wonder Woman. He was a true friend to all of us.
He gave all he had to protect freedom and uphold justice.
So long, old pal. We'll never forget you.
No, Robin. And although his true identity must remain a secret, the world will always remember him as Batman.
Another topic worth broaching is the fluctuation and inconsistencies regarding Aquaman's ancestral homeland of Atlantis on the Super Friends. To be fair, there have been a myriad of cities that have been designated as Atlantis going as far back as Action Comics issue number 17 from the year 1938. The mythical underwater continent of Atlantis gets its first mention in an Aquaman story within More Fun Comics issue number 73 from the year 1941. However, the first real visual appearance of Aquaman's Atlantis comes inside the pages of Adventure Comics issue 260 by the year 1959.
It must be the lost city of Atlantis.
Now, you'd think that with Superman and Aquaman being, super friends, that he'd know that Aquaman comes from Atlantis. But for whatever ludicrous reason, it seems that there's quite a bit of evidence that may suggest that Aquaman does not actually hail from Atlantis on the Super Friends. Perhaps the simplest explanation for the episode titled Battle at the Earth's Core is that Superman, by way of the writers, just didn't know any better. It's not as if Aquaman was around to correct Superman's misconception of the ruins that he and Wonder Woman found at the Earth's core.
And Atlantis will be lost as well! Our icy invaders must not know about Atlantis! It may be just the break we need.
The most accurate portrayal of Aquaman's Atlantis comes in the episode titled World Beneath the Ice. The warlord Tirana comes from an underground civilization from the North Pole and plots to create another ice age to stop the so-called surface dwellers from encroaching on their territory. Tirana's shadowy face and icy armor tend to remind me of the character Warduke from the Dungeons & Dragons cartoon. This is one of the only episodes that actually features Aquaman seeking safe harbor in the city of Atlantis and leading his people against Tirana and his polar troops, even though Tirana himself seems to suffer from the delusion that Aquaman is not actually from Atlantis.
Great Atlantis, there must be dozens of frozen ships here. Whoever's running these giant icebergs isn't fooling around.
That's right, Surface Dweller!
Further adding to the general confusion in the Super Friends short titled Return of Atlantis from the year 1980, the city is not the home of Aquaman. Instead, it is inhabited by a group of warrior women led by Queen Osina.
Great Neptune! It's the lost island of ancient Atlantis. But it was destroyed thousands of years ago. I've got to check it out.
Dude, you know it's not lost, right? You totally live there.
I'd better notify the Super Friends. Rokan!
Usually, the way most disparaging accounts of Atlantis were handled in the DC Comics continuity is that there were dubbed various cities belonging to the entire continent of Atlantis. For instance, Aquaman's adventures would occur in the capital city of Poseidonus, while the mermaid Lori Lamaris from Superman lore comes from the neighboring colony of Tritonus. For a wonderfully detailed account of Atlantean history, you should check out the 7-issue miniseries The Atlantis Chronicles by Peter David and Esteban Maroto from the year 1990.
I'll take care of it. The ocean is my domain.
While the Challenge of the Super Friends specifically set out to up the stakes and change tradition, the follow-up half-hour of the 1978 series pretty much fits the conventional Super Friends formula. The original 5 Super Friends were all participants, along with the popular Wonder Twins. The villains, while a bit less innocuous than the Marvin and Wendy days, were generally created from scratch by Hanna-Barbera. Perhaps with the studio having the luxury of 2 half-hours, the creators could get away with switching up the basic motif in Challenge of the Super Friends. Meanwhile, the Super Friends half-hour remains consistent with what has successfully worked for them in the past, just in case that whole Legion of Doom thing didn't quite work out.
planet far away from us. In a galaxy among the stars, live two aliens, brother and sister. On the planet Exor, they look like Vulcans. Mister battle Roken and Tyrannus. And Gleek doesn't care much about who wins, as long as he gets a big banana. Touchdown is frozen H2O. Jaina, a Kodiak bear. A Kodiak. Did you ever notice that Superman? Did you ever notice he has a plastic? Yeah. Out a world of pain, yeah. And Wonder Woman flies an invisible plane. And Aquaman controls the creatures of the sea. And Zen can turn to ice and to the glass of tea.
You're too strong, Superman. Have mercy on me.